There's an ETH loop on Aave V4 that's earning 14% APY currently. And in this video, I want to cover two things. First is explain how that loop works, where does the yield actually come from? And then the second is a hands-on walkthrough of how to set yourself up with this position. So I'm going to put timestamps in the description. If you're already familiar with how looping on Aave works, if you're familiar with how liquid staking tokens work and where their yield comes from, then you can just skip to the hands-on part. But if you haven't had too much experience, it's worth sticking around for the full video, including this explanation. So let me dive right in. So this loop is going to be EtherFi's weETH and ETH. And the first thing we want to cover here is how does weETH work? Where does its yield come from? So it's an LST, which is a liquid staking token or a liquid restaking token. And how it functions is you take your ETH, you deposit it into EtherFi, and you get weETH or wrapped weETH, which is known as weETH, back. So it earns staking yield, it can be used in DeFi, and it's known as an LST or a liquid restaking token. Now, where does its yield actually come from? Well, what does EtherFi do? They take your ETH, first they stake it for their validator in the proof of staking system. So very simple, it's pretty much the backbone of how Ethereum functions. They pool and lock up that ETH, which is used by a validator. And that in and of itself is going to earn you yield. We've covered that real quickly. Let's move on to Aave V4. This is where this loop functions. This is where you're going to be earning the yield. Now, you're probably familiar with Aave and Aave V4. You supply the weETH collateral, you earn the native yield. So there's no supply interest that you earn. You're just earning that inherent native APY. You borrow ETH and you pay borrow APY on that borrowed ETH. Now on Aave V4, there's a separate EtherFi market for this specific loop. So this is where you're going to be doing it. So why does this weETH ETH work, known as an LST loop? Well, ETH and weETH, they're highly correlated in price. That means that if one of them experiences movement, ETH, then weETH is going to follow. So you're not putting two different volatile assets together that are not correlated in price at all. You're doing those that move together in price. So the position can remain kind of balanced while earning the yield. Now, the risks of this are, of course, borrow rate spikes. So this works on the idea that the borrow rate is going to be lower than the native yield on the LST. So, of course, if the borrow rate experiences a huge spike, that's going to be bad for the position. Second of all, weETH can depeg since it's an ERC20 token, meaning that it can be sold on the market, it can be bought on the market. So for some reason, maybe there's an issue with EtherFi and a lot of people sell off their weETH on the secondary market, it can depeg, it can fall off in price and deviate from ETH's price, and that can lead you to getting liquidated. And of course, a market crash, which goes without saying, but worth mentioning. Cool. So let's move on to the ETH looping or the ETH LST looping. How does that work? How does that function? So we supply weETH as collateral. We then borrow ETH. We then use this borrowed ETH and we swap it for weETH, and then we resupply it into the position. And then we perform the borrow and swap again, we resupply it, and then we keep repeating this process until our desired leverage amount. So this is known as leveraging or looping. So you are supplying, borrowing, swapping, supplying. Would just quickly mention, this can seem pretty chaotic if you're doing it manually. Of course, there are tools that do this in one transaction, like DeFi Saver has an inbuilt one transaction leveraging tool where you just say how much you want to leverage and it takes care of everything on its own. We're going to dive into that in the second part of this video. So an important thing to mention, why does this work? Well, Aave V4 is actually partnering with EtherFi to offer incentives. When you are in the EtherFi market or the EtherFi spoke, if you borrow ETH and you supply weETH as collateral, you're going to get weETH or wrapped ETH rewards that are going to offset the borrow rate for ETH. So it's essentially going to decrease the amount that you're paying for borrowing but you earning weETH rewards. And that's how it reaches this high double-digit APY. Worth noting as well, since this EtherFi market is isolated with just weETH and ETH, it can also offer a high LTV or loan-to-value ratio, meaning you can use a large part of your collateral's value to borrow ETH based on it. And that covers this quick introduction. I didn't want to go too much into detail, just wanted to give you a quick intro into how these three key components work and how they fit together to set up this high yield loop. Okay, so now we're moving on to the hands-on part of this video. And to start off with, I'm on DeFi Saver. I've activated the simulation mode, which lets us perform some test transactions. And so we're going to go ahead and visit this quick start section. And we're going to test out actually setting up this loop. So right here, we can see that there's a list of different one transaction strategies I can execute. I'm going to go for the weETH loop on Aave V4. So once I've clicked on this zap, the interesting thing is it actually lets me start with ETH, not just weETH. So if you just have ETH in your wallet, you can actually start there, and the recipe for the zap is going to perform the swap and everything else in the background so that you can get weETH even though you're starting with regular ETH. So I input the amount and I can choose max leverage. That's going to give us the maximum APY that's currently showing. If I don't want to go that highly leveraged, I can go for something closer to 10x leverage. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that it's going to show us the safety ratio as well as the APY we're actually going to be earning. At the same time, it's going to be showing some other parameters such as what's left to supply, left to borrow, the current rate, trade size impact. And the interesting part is that DeFi Saver optimizes the way you acquire LSTs. And in this case, it's actually going to stake that ETH directly on EtherFi so that you don't incur any slippage on it. So it's not going to be swapping it, it's going to be staking it, meaning you get the best rate on it. And so here you can also see a detailed breakdown of how this entire zap works. So it's just a couple of clicks to enter the amount, slide the leverage slider, and then click create. So we're just going to sign a couple of transactions here. You do need a smart wallet that's going to handle this complex transaction. Sign to open the position. And you're good to go. That's pretty much it. So in one transaction, it sets you up with the weETH ETH loop on the EtherFi market on Aave V4. Here you're going to see the balance, your net APY, how much you're going to be earning in a year, the current price, your liquidation price in the ETH and weETH ratio, the borrow power used, basically all the most important metrics you would need for your position. Down here, you're going to find some other tools to manage your position, such as increasing your leverage in one transaction, decreasing leverage in one transaction, or just doing some vanilla stuff on Aave V4, such as supplying, withdrawing, borrowing, and paying back your debt. At any point, you can also scroll down here to the market section, and you're going to see the current yield on weETH as well as the borrow rate on ETH. Something to keep in mind is that the borrow rate that you get, the good borrow rate on ETH, it's not a lower borrow rate flat. You actually get incentives through Merkl. So you get 0.74% in wrapped ETH rewards that you claim from Merkl, and that offsets the borrow rate for ETH and actually gets you this positive loop opportunity. So one more thing just to mention here is that you'll actually get the reward section right here on DeFi Saver. You'll be able to claim those rewards through the same dashboard. The idea being that you don't have to go to Merkl directly and manage your position through 3 different apps. You can do everything inside of one app. A couple other things to mention: you have a history tab where you can see the entire history of your V4 position. The notify tab will let you set up notifications for your position, and then automate will also give you access to DeFi Saver's suite of automation tools. So if you're looking to jump on this yield opportunity, you can get everything set up in one transaction through DeFi Saver on Aave V4.